Hi there, and welcome to the 38th episode of Career Stories Live. So today I'm joined by Steve O'Connor, who's the director of the River and Row Museum in Henley. Welcome, Steve. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Brilliant. Okay. So Steve's actually my husband's boss, and we met a while ago at an event at the museum, and just thought he had a really interesting career. So that's why I invited him on. So as always, please do comment to let us know if you're watching live. Feel free to ask any questions or share your experience in the comment section. And if you're watching later on replay, then also if you do the same thing, we'll go back and look at those later. So just as a brief basis for the lives, I've been running these sessions now, as you saw, 38 weeks. I'm just really interested in what people do, why they do it. I like to learn about different roles and careers, and that helps me in my career coaching to give people information and advice. So the idea really is to inspire thought about what people could do as a career and to give people advice. And my guests are always really helpful about sharing those kind of career tips. So with that in mind, we'll go straight over to you, Steve. And could you give us a brief intro to you and what it is you're doing right now?
Of course. So right now I am director at the River and Row Museum here in Henley-on-Thames. Still quite new to the role, so just over 6 months in now. And then being director it's an odd one because I'm sort of responsible for everything, but I don't actually do any of it. I'm responsible for making sure that we have a decent plan, that we're on plan, and then I'm that link between the trustees who sort out the governance and give us the oversight of what we're doing, and then the team that actually deliver it. So I've sort of a foot in each camp, and speak with both of those groups. And yeah, I must say, absolutely loving it. It's been a real privilege to be able to get the role and come in and start doing my bit. And it's getting better and better. I got told a lot when I started there was going to be huge challenges and huge opportunities to go with that, and that is more true today than it has ever been.
Absolutely, and I guess the recent floods have been one of those challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we had start of January we had about 3 feet of water in the car park. Luckily, the building itself is on stilts, so the collection and the offices and everything were fine. But yes, the car park and it was a bit of a write-off, so we had to close. And even today, I've been outside having some photos taken in Marsh Meadow to highlight the floods, and so I've had to change my shoes and socks because they're all a bit wet and soggy.
Oh wow. Okay, so we've got Paul here saying hello to Sarah and Steve. So thank you, Paul. Thanks for joining. Okay, so early careers. I always like to ask about early careers. So did you have a job whilst you were at school or at college or both of those things? And if so, has that helped you in any way?
So I did have a couple of jobs in school and then at university as well. And it was always around sort of bar work or sort of silver service, that sort of thing. So I grew up in Nottingham, and so we've got the Trent Bridge cricket ground there, which is a decent sized employer in the area. And so most of my work was done working at weddings and bars there. And then I ended up sort of when I was back at holiday time, being the manager of the long room bar.
Okay.
So, everything from a county cricket match where there's sort of 3 people in the entire stadium through to the Ashes, and it's 10 people deep for 9 hours, and you're trying to work your way through it. So it was, looking back now, it was a really fun holiday job to have, and actually a bit bonkers really to be given responsibility for the members bar when I was there, when I really didn't know what I was doing. And thinking about our chat today, not really knowing what I'm doing seems to be a bit of a theme in my career. But yes, that sort of got me, my first paychecks, and I suppose what that I learned from that initially was that it is, anyone that's worked in a bar will know, it's hard work. You're on your feet a lot, and it's just hard graft, as is rowing. And so I was sort of rowing at the same time, so I was used to that. But it definitely sort of set me up, I think, for not being afraid to put in hard yards, which I think is at some point in your career you have to do. You have to put in some hard work at some point to reap the rewards of that.
Excellent. Yeah, that's good. So did the venue itself help influence your decision? They were kind of sporting venues, or was that just a kind of coincidence?
It was some mates of mine worked there, and it was as simple as that. So followed over. And I even remember it was back in the days where you used to get your little brown mini envelope with some cash in it as your I remember getting my first one of those and thinking, God, this is amazing. They're giving me money for just turning up and doing, handing out some potatoes at someone's wedding.
Yeah.
Yes, it was following my friends down there that started off that one.
Excellent. So networking at an early age, and that's the thing, it really helps, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So you went to university, as you talked about. So how did you then start your career after you finished university?
Well, I think university was an interesting one for me because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So going through school, I was sort of drawn to RAF, and I thought military was probably where I was going to end up. And then I started going down that path, and my mum got very excited / agitated that I was about to go off to war. So we had a couple of direct conversations about that, and I just thought, what, I'll think about that while I go through uni. And I did a degree in computing because I kind of like computers, but I didn't really want to be a programmer. I just was interested in computing and did that. And the thing I did say during uni was I definitely don't want a corporate job, and I don't want to work in an office. I don't know why I thought that, but I just always said I don't want to be corporate and have that lifestyle. So I finished uni, went to Australia for a couple of months to do that, and backpack up and down the coast there, and then came back from that. So that was probably autumn of 2003, and then needed to find a job. So I went back to university, back up to Leeds where I was, and started coaching the local boat club there, just a bit of cash in hand work, and then really sort of had to actually decide on a job. And so, having said for years I wasn't going to go corporate, I applied for the Diageo graduate scheme and got into that. So, having said I wasn't going to go corporate, I went to the most corporate thing you could do, which is work for one of the biggest drinks company in the world at the time. And so, ended up as a graduate at Diageo shortly after graduating.
Excellent. Okay. So what kind of graduate program was it? Was it in a specific area, or was it like a general rotation type program?
So the bit I got onto initially was sales. So I went out into field sales, which was great because one thing Diageo did really well was train people. And so they obviously aren't recruiting graduates on their experience or knowledge particularly, but more about their approach to life and work. And so it was really good to go through that training process and learn about selling, but also how to operate and how to be in that corporate world, I suppose. So I stayed within sales and then got moved over to sales ops. So then I was brought into the head office. So I was then supporting all of those people that are doing field sales and make sure they've got all the right tools and kits to do their job. And then that started to go over to a little bit of marketing, and then you started working with various brand teams on what they were trying to do for all the different products. And it's things like Guinness and Baileys and Bells and Smirnoff and all that sort of stuff. So it was really good to get that corporate experience. But then, reasonably quickly, I worked out I was right, that I didn't actually enjoy life all that much. Yeah.
Okay. So what came next then after that?
So the thing I did enjoy was marketing. And I enjoyed, my degree was computing, but I also did like a management joint honours with it. So as part of management, there was a marketing module in that. And I'd always really enjoyed that. And then at Diageo, I enjoyed working with those brand teams. And then an opportunity came up to work in a digital marketing agency based out in Windsor, called Brandwidth, which is still going now. So I took that and spent a couple of years working out there. So to go from client side over to agency side, which was great fun. Like it was fascinating to see it from the other side and have multiple different brands to work with. And it was a really good time to be at Brandwidth because it was small. It was sort of probably post startup, but still acted very much like a startup. And we did some really fun work. I remember one thing we did was create a symphony orchestra out of a bunch of Lexus cars, and we took that into all the countries. Yeah, it's great, like really, really good fun. And then so stay with that agency for a bit, and then thought, right, okay, marketing seems to be the niche, and enjoy that. So then went to a London-based agency called RMG Connect, which doesn't exist anymore. It was part of the JWT group. It's a massive group of marketing companies, and sort of did that, and then found myself back in a corporate world. So I'd sort of inadvertently made the same mistake and gone back into corporate life without really realizing what it'd be like. And I have to say there, I absolutely hated it. It was really interesting to be in a job where it was all about like the office, the culture. I guess it's culture. Culture seems too broad a word for it, but it's just wasn't a good place to be. Huge Sunday night fear. All that sort of stereotypical stuff you hear about. I was suffering it, and I just really didn't enjoy it. So I started thinking about then after it could only have been a year. I think I was like, oh my God, I can't do this for the rest of my life. And it wasn't worth going through it to be an account director or beyond, because I didn't feel pulled towards it. Alongside all of that, at the same time, I was still involved in rowing as a club rower. So I'd rowed from like school. So I was at a state school in Nottingham. We were one of 2 or 3 in the country that rowed. Then rowed at university, then was a club rower. And I'd always been involved in the administration of rowing. So I was always like on the committee and, doing all of the background work that volunteers do to help sports clubs run. And I found when I was in my marketing role, I was always at work doing admin for rowing, which obviously a bit naughty because you're there to be working. But when you really don't like being there, it felt like a nice escape. And so it kind of got to the point where I said, you know what, I need to see if I can work in rowing. It'd always been something that I'd thought about. I never really wanted to coach particularly, but I just thought I'm young enough. I was 26-ish at that point. I was young enough that I could try it, and if it didn't work, I could always go back to marketing and just suck it up, and that's what life would be like. So from there, I then went and got a role. A mate of mine was coaching at a local authority, and they had a rowing club called Barnelm's Boathouse, just down in Wandsworth, southwest London. So a mate of mine was coaching there and said, "Look, there's a full-time coaching and development officer position going. Would you apply for it?" So I went for that, and then started my journey working in a bit more closely with sport.
Excellent. So do you think your work kind of volunteering for the boat clubs and things like that over the years, do you think that helped you to get that role?
Yeah, I think so. I think because I could demonstrate that I knew what I was talking about in terms of the sport. And I think that I really wanted to try and see if I could carve out some sort of niche in rowing, and not necessarily be a performance rowing coach, which is like what most people do, but try and see if there was another way to operate there. But certainly the rowing I'd done and the involvement I had with clubs definitely helped. I think what also helped though was having, funny enough, that corporate experience, which I'd always sort of slightly rebelled against. That really helped because I, had been trained in a way to operate. And it's quite interesting turning up to a local authority boathouse on sort of the edge of Wandsworth, where, I'd been at a fairly plush office in Knightsbridge and thinking, blimey, like, in a way it was like, is this, not in a bad way, but I was just thinking, is this what somewhere that I actually want to work? Is this right? Is this, is this something that I can affect change in? So it definitely took a lot of, sort of in my mind, a bit of a culture shift to move over to be, in local authority. But I never wanted to lose that sort of professional edge that you get from being in the corporate world, and wanted to make sure that you could always see some sort of progression happening. And I hope at least that we're able to make that happen somewhat when I was there.
Yeah. Okay. So a really good example of kind of cross sort of transferable skills really from that combination of the voluntary work and your corporate life to move into that kind of role. So that's really good to hear. As I said to you beforehand, quite often I have clients that are going from local authority into corporate. Doesn't happen so often the other way, but typically it seems to be when people are kind of maybe slowing down their careers rather than progressing it. So really, really interesting to hear that different view. So how long were you there at the local authority?
So at Barnells, I was there 5 years. And ended up running the site. So, managers move on and you sort of, move to their seat. So I was running the site, and we were working with lots of different schools and taking, 1,000 or so kids a year onto the water. And I was then in charge of the team, and probably my first genuine bit of leadership there in terms of, running the show. And really loved it. Like, I was, what's not to love about being on the water, teaching kids how to row, and, enjoying it in all seasons and being outside, and also then not, being part of an organisation, so there is backup behind you like that. It was all good fun. But I think, like with anything, whatever role you're in, I think you always need to feel like there's progression and there's something to aim at. And as I got towards the end of 5 years, I started thinking, actually, I'm not sure what the progression is here.
Yeah.
I knew that I'm not sure what it was I was going to do, but I knew that I wanted to progress and, do something significant. I just wasn't sure what it was. And I did know that it probably wasn't working in a local authority and moving up those rungs of the ladder. So I started looking around at, various sports marketing agencies, try and combine the two. And all sort of sports related stuff, and nothing really stuck. I got offered a job at some point selling some sports clothes, but it was like commission only, and it was an awful sort of negotiation. In the end, eventually I sort of listened to the warning bells and walked away. But yeah, so it was on my mind, and actually it got quite stressful towards the end of thinking, blimey, am I going to be working here, for the foreseeable future with no real out? And then one day I was sat at my desk in the office, and one of the coaches came in and said, have you seen they're looking for a boat club consultant? I think you should probably go for it. And then so showed me the link, and that's where I started thinking about Fulham Reach for the first time.
Excellent. I noticed you had something about rowing Scotland on your LinkedIn profile as well. Was that about the same time?
So that came a bit later.
Right.
That was during lockdown. Yeah.
Right.
So as I say, like Fulham started, I was sat at my desk. This guy called Cled walked in and said, I think you should look at this. It's one of the few times in my life I've been absolutely certain that I have to go and get that and achieve it. I got a bit weird about it. Like I started stalking the people almost that knew, that were on the recruitment panel. Like there's all people in the rowing world that I knew who they were. So I just kept making sure that I was front of mind for them. And then was able to present, a case of how this new community boat club could work. I was able to draw on the stuff I'd done in the world of rowing, the corporate experience I had, and then sort of having just run a boat club in itself. I was able to put together a decent plan of how that would operate. And it was really exciting because it was all about grassroots rowing, which is what I'm passionate about. And I'm really passionate about grassroots sport. I think high performance sport is really interesting and it's great to watch. And I'm, loving the Six Nations at the moment and all that. But coaching it, I can't get that excited about. And I've done a bit of performance coaching in rowing, but making fast people go really fast isn't that exciting, I don't think. But making someone who's scared of the water get out there and love it is really interesting and exciting. Yeah. So there was an opportunity to start this boat club that was well funded with a completely blank sheet of paper, and I just knew I had to have it. I had to get in there and make it happen. So ended up being recruited as the consultant. So alongside everything I was doing at Barn Elms, out of hours, then I was creating this plan and setting up what the future of Fulham would look like. And then we got to it was really weird because I was working with the Barclay Group and St George PLC, who was the developer building the site. So it was as part of the planning gain, part of the permission, they had to put this boat club in. So alongside building 800 luxury flats, they had this sort of annoying little boat club they had to put in as well. So it was a bit weird to be writing a plan and try and get the attention of these guys whilst they've got this development to build. And then we got to December 2013, January 14, and it became clear that we were going to open it, I was going to run it, and I needed time to actually prepare that. So I went full time on it from January 14, which was great because it was great and it was weird because I was working from home for 9 months before working from home was a thing.
It was a thing, yeah.
It's funny working from home then because I used to get really paranoid that if I wasn't busy working the day, somebody would spot me. If I went out for a coffee or something, I'd get rumbled. So looking back, I was far more diligent than I should have been when I was sort of working from home, or far more, I was far more paranoid than I needed to be. but it allowed me that time to sort of craft a plan. And you know, I was literally handed a set of keys to this building with no boats, no staff, no equipment, no desks, no chairs, and told to go and get on with it. And then in October that year, we opened the doors and set forth on creating this new charity.
Excellent. Which kind of led me on to the next question about creating the charity. So, I mean, so what kind of work were you involved in there then, setting up a charity? That sounds like quite a big
It was, like I was employee number one, and at some point had to do everything in the business before being able to recruit people to take over. So that was a really good grounding in terms of learning how to build something and how to scale it. So we went from zero, as I've said, to, by the time I left, we had 2,000 kids a year on the water. We were working with the prison service across half a dozen prisons in the southeast. We were running holiday activity programs for a few hundred children a year from some of the most deprived socioeconomic groups in West London. And then we had a couple of hundred, no more than that, no, 300 members who were looking after that were going rowing all the time. And so all in, we had about 30 members of staff and £1 million turnover charity. So at some point, building from naught to that, I'd had to be involved in everything from, you know, financial reporting to marketing to HR to, you know, you name it. So it was a really, really good grounding. It's a fantastic learning experience to go through. And it was, you know, broadly successful. Like any charity, we were always worried about fundraising, always worried about making sure that we could get it to the end of the year, which, you know, never goes away, I don't think, in charity land. But the experience, I think, I was really lucky to get that experience, and it's a really unique experience. I remember talking to one of my trustees there once, saying, like, I might go and think about some sort of MA or MBA, and he said, why would you waste the time and money when you're effectively doing an MBA now? Which I thought was a useful comment to make.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So it was great, and I loved it, and I enjoyed the challenge of leading it. I liked being in charge. I liked the responsibility that comes with that, and the sort of the ability to craft a plan and almost like chess, like move people around and put them in the right place to achieve the goals. And I look back, I was just really sort of proud isn't the right word. I was just really pleased to have been a part of it, and even more pleased now to see it going on and doing bigger and better things. Yeah,
it's really interesting because I had a guy called Ian on Career Stories a few weeks ago, who was the governor of London Prison. So he actually did mention the rowing initiative. So it's really interesting, those two completely different stories of cross like this.
Yes, yeah. So it's great, and that program's going really well now. It's got all sorts of awards coming its way and expanding out. So it's great. It's a very odd experience being in a prison, seeing us deliver rowing experiences. I nearly accidentally got locked in once, but that's probably a story for a different time.
Excellent. So would you have to take rowing machines there, I guess, to...
Yeah. So we would, each prison would secure its machines, and then Imogen, our coach, who's still running it now, would go in and deliver the sessions. And the idea is that we go in for, say, 8 weeks, and you're trying to show that sport has a positive mental impact on the people in there, and it's all about rehabilitation. So, you know, the vast majority of people that, I can't remember the numbers now, but I know it's the majority of people that go into prison will reoffend within a year, and they're back into the prison gate is effectively a revolving door. So we need to try not just incarcerate but rehabilitate, and as a charity we can come in and support the prison in that and help them work with those people. So it was a great program, and I was sort of really pleased to see it carry on and do its thing today.
Excellent. And the schoolwork must have been really, really rewarding, like you say, getting kids on the water that would never have that opportunity is pretty special.
It's really, and really close to my heart, because I was one of those kids in a school that by and large shouldn't have been rowing, and we had no real business turning up to these races. So it was great, and it was great that we got on the curriculum for these schools, so children had to go rowing whether they wanted to or not. So that was really interesting. So you got from the data, we know that 80% of kids that came to us loved rowing, and we know that 99% of those kids would never got the chance. But also, crucially, we knew that 20% of the kids that came to us hated it. Right. At least they knew they hated it because they got the opportunity and they had to go, and we could turn them off into another sport. So yeah, no, it was great. It was a really really good fun place to be a part of.
Excellent. Just seeing James is saying hi to Sarah and Steve, so thank you for joining. Okay, so now most recently, as you mentioned, you're at the River and Rome Museum. So what was it that appealed about that role?
Well, there was two things. So at Fulham, there's sort of the push and the pull. So the push from Fulham, it wasn't really a push. It was more of the timing felt right. So, you know, I'd led it through COVID. We'd got back on our feet and we were starting to worry about all of the pre-COVID problems we had post-COVID. So that to me felt like actually we're pretty much back to normal now. And it was 10 years in, it's me thinking, well, actually, is it about time now to do this, or do I stay at Fulham for the long term and try and grow it beyond where it is? So that was in the back of my mind. And then this opportunity came up for the director position at the museum. And the museum itself has been in, it's been in a difficult position for a few years now. So COVID obviously did its thing to all museums and visitor attractions. But this place seemed to really struggle to get back on its feet. And then about a year or two after COVID, so 22, I think it was, the trustees decided that there was a significant enough backlog of things to put right that they just had to spend some reserves and put right all those things that were wrong. So they closed the doors for 9 months and went on a massive infrastructure project. So everything from refitting this room I'm in now. This used to be our education space. It's now offices to let, this building. Creating this, putting a new roof on, redoing the CCTV, the IT infrastructure, like everything you can imagine that had been forgotten about over 25 years got done. And so the challenge then was there was going to be this brand new, effectively, business or a revamped business as a museum that needed some leadership and needed someone to help try and lead it back into an operating break even. So an absolutely whacking great challenge. And like being a rower and, used to taking on hard things, that to me was really, really appealing. I may live to regret saying that, but I just thought though, with the challenges there, but also the potential this place has is outstanding. It's a brilliant museum and it does some really impressive things. It's got some cracking stories to tell. And I know that the team here are super talented and able to deliver on it. So for me, it felt like if you're being slightly opportunistic about it, you say, well, actually, this is a really good bet because the potential's there. All the pieces seem to be in place. It's a good time to get in and try and have an influence. So that was sort of a major pull factor to be involved with it. And then like anything, you go through the recruitment process and you get in and then you find out what's really going on. And it was, it was interesting to see that, you could really feel the lack of a permanent director had been a major issue for a number of years. And we've had, there was, Paul, the interim director, did an amazing job to sort of stabilize the ship and get all of the work completed. But you could tell like the team itself just needed that person in that role that could then help guide and direct the way the sort of the boat or the ship should be going. So so that's what sort of drew me to it, and here we are now.
Excellent. So starting to run short on time, a couple more questions. So just about values really, and I think I can probably guess the answer to this based on what we've already talked about, but everyone so far that I've had on has talked about their values and whether or not their personal values have an impact on the type of work or organisation you'll join. So do you think that's true for you as well?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I can't ever find myself in a position where I'm chasing a financial package for a role. Like I have to feel that my personal values are aligned with that of the organisation. So here it's about storytelling, it's about engagement, working with young people, education, all that stuff that I really care about. So I would struggle to understand how someone works somewhere where their values don't align.
Okay, that's good. Okay, and finally, have you got any advice for people who are about to leave school, college, university about how to get started in their career?
Well, I would say that you don't have to have all the answers when you're 18, 19, 20, 21. If you think you've got all the answers, you probably haven't. So I would suggest that people try things out and don't be afraid to fail at things. And if you don't have the answer till you're sort of 30, 35, like that's fine. There's still plenty of time in life to sort it out. So I would say just get out there and try things, and you'll find it. And the key one I would say is network, grow your network as quickly as you can. Remember everyone you've spoken to, and crucially, I would say be nice to everyone you speak to, because the thing I'm finding now is people I've worked with in my early career are now coming back around and being involved again. And so I would highly recommend that everybody be nice to everyone, because you never know when you're going to see them again.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's exactly it, isn't it? I think people talk about networking and kind of scared about networking, but actually it is just talking to people and being nice, like you say, because you never know where that next lead is going to come from.
Yeah, exactly right. And I've had people that I thought I didn't get on very well with, and recent fundraising things I've done, they've ended up sponsoring us, and it's just by keeping those links is super important. Yeah,
excellent. And James has just come back and said, and go out rowing. Sorry, and go out rowing. Excellent. Okay, so thank you very much, Steve, for joining me today, and thank you to everyone that's been watching. As I said, I'll go back in and have a look at any questions that come in later on the replay, and I'm back not next Thursday, the week after, the 7th of March, when I'm going to be talking to Jo Watson, who is a copywriter, author and leader of community group Goddamn Inspiration, and I've put that then may well be swearing, because she does swear a little bit. So anyway, thanks again, Steve, and see you all next time. Bye.